Welcome to session 2 of day 4 of the Soil Summit 2024, Biodiversity, Cultivating Life. It is an honor to share this space with you and have these conversations with these awesome humans sharing their wisdom and their experience and their learnings with us so that we can deepen into our learnings. And I just want to invite you to open your hearts and listen with your hearts and your ears and your eyes and all your senses in this conversation with Jodi, and just notice what you notice, feel what you feel, and see what you see, hear what you hear as it relates to who you are, where you are, and the next steps you are stepping into. And maybe make notes about how what you're learning in this conversation is connected to how you can maybe integrate it into your practices, into your farming practices, your gardening practices, or maybe it's the way you live. Maybe it's a mindset. Maybe it's a new way of seeing things. And with that, I welcome Jodi Roebuck into the room. Nicole Masters was one of the first speakers to confirm for the Soil Summit 2024, and I was pretty excited because she's kind of feels like a sister to me, even though we've never met, and I really like her, and she's this world-renowned voice in global regeneration and planetary health and all things soil. And when I asked her who she'd like to see in the Soil Summit, Jodi was the first name that came out of her mouth, or ethos. And she just had so many wonderful things to say about Jodi. And so I reached out to him, and he graciously said yes, he would like to participate. Now, something happened for Nicole, and she wasn't able to be here this year, but I feel I feel like everything happens in divine ways. And I think part of that was bringing Jodi to the Soil Summit so he could share his breadth and depth of experience in market gardening and how he has turned something that he loves and is passionate about into something that is profitable and regenerative and sustainable for himself and his family. And he's now showing other people how to build that for themselves. And he's if you check out his Instagram, he's very generous in how he shares his knowledge. And so he's a good person to learn from if you're kind of on the fly and you like to learn from people. And his Instagram will put in the chat here for you, so you can go follow him. And we'll also put his website there for you as well. Yes, Oliver, we're super excited and feel the fire in the house too. With that, Jodi, welcome to the Soil Summit, and we look forward to learning some practical and resourceful tips for building sustainable, regenerative, and profitable market gardens. I'm going to hand it over to you. And Jodi, just to give you an idea of how this session is going to work, because everyone is a bit different, Jodi is sharing a slideshow with us, and he'll go through that. As you have questions, please pop them into the chat. It's helpful if you put question and then you put the question so that we can see them more easily as we're scrolling through. And then we'll also open it up for more Q&A at the end. Introducing Jodi Roebuck.
Thank you very much for the invite, Heart and Soil, and to be able to present at the Soil Summit. It's my pleasure. And to Nicole for suggesting my name as well. We're good. We're just going to put up our presentation as well.
So before we get into, or while you're doing that, Jodi, if you can do more than one thing at a time, tell us are you going to tell us how you got into doing what you're doing? Is that part of your presentation?
Yep. I was going to start with the history of intensive market gardening, and then bring it back to who we are and what we do.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so yeah, the title we have is A Practical Start to a Sustainable and Profitable Market Garden. And I think, you can't be green if you're in the red. regenerative needs to be profitable, and vice versa as well. So that's been the big change for us in the last 10 years. We're gonna tell you a lot of our stories there. So I'd like to start with where does this all come from? The small scale intensive food production. We're really indebted to the French in Paris. My wife is art history and painting teacher. She's just retired to be full-time on the business, and she's been just besotted with the history of the painting that comes from Paris, which is kind of a nice fit for me because that's where really this movement comes from. And I just want to explain a couple of things, really simple, but it's roughly 16 to 1800s, and the market garden beds were very skinny, and I think the point of difference was they were permanent. They weren't cultivating and resetting beds every season. Once the beds were developed, they were grown in permanently forever, and fertility added. So kind of the things they had going on were deep living soils and intensive planting, which enables you to grow a lot of food in a small space. I think that's one of the key parts there. And they were doing intercropping, and they were, I've got backgrounds across lots of different sectors. I'll explain my background soon, but I can say this is one of the most fast-moving, skills-based, intensive decision-making things that I've ever undertaken. And generally, farmers are seen as, well, there's lots of ways to look at it, but maybe you go farming if you're not the smartest cookie in the jar. So we look back to this history, and this is really where the modern movement has come from. And on third of an acre was one skilled worker, and they didn't have all the fancy things we have these days, like cell phones, irrigation pipe, greenhouses for season extension. Every lettuce, they put a glass bell jar, which you can see on the right-hand slide over. So it's very intensive. And they're all about context. Their fertility was their transport system, which was horse and cart. So horse manure was what was available. And I think that's the message here too, that your inputs are your local available resources. Eliot Coleman, the godfather of the modern movement in Maine, lives coastal. They have a lot of crab meal, which is one of their inputs that they use. So we're using what's relevant to us. So moving forward, we're still one skilled worker to a third of an acre. But we have all of the modern, let's see if I can get this box off. We have a lot of modern technology now that's really come out in the last 20 years, and we're gonna show you that as we go through our presentation. And 15 years ago, Jean-Martin Fortier, he is author of The Market Garden. He's in Quebec, Canada. Jean-Martin was showcasing that from their home farm, La Grillinette, which means the Broad Fork, they were turning over $150,000 on 1.5 acres. And this was kind of the first conversation where growers were starting to talk about turnover and financial viability. And this was kind of big news at the time. And I think the reason that the conversation has started with growers about turnover is because there's been such a struggle with actually viability of the business. And so this kind of launched Jean-Martin into the public arena, and has been one of the modern growers who has really transformed and made growing vegetables as a viable income. And his mentor was Eliot Coleman, who is in Maine, who's the godfather of this movement. I'm going to come back to explaining some of these growers and their work and their influence. So I met Jean-Martin in 2016. He came to our farm, invited me to go to his farm, and that was one of the biggest changes for us to turn what was really a hardcore, serious hobby into a business. And I'll explain more about our background, but prior to this, we were in vegetable seed production for 10 years, and we were quite good at it, but we weren't ready to be a business. So I had a huge seed collection, but I wasn't selling it to anyone. I was working off farm. That might sound familiar. And this was one of the biggest changes for us to go, right, we think we can do this. Let's start growing food for our people. And the rest is history. So Elliot Coleman, the godfather of market gardening, is in Maine. He's called Four Season Farm. He's probably mid-80s, just retired. Elliot has invented a whole lot of tools that have just totally transformed what is now possible on a very small piece of land. And most of these tools are relatively new, like within 20, 25 years. So it's very recent. And so this movement, the modern or the contemporary market garden, is still in a very active space of evolution. And what's possible to us this season was not last season, and so on and so on. So that's what really excites me and drives me to travel the world, work on other farms, and deliver outreach, as things are changing so fast. And so this is a tiny tractor. It's called a tilther, and it runs off a big drill, and it just surface cultivates the top 1.5 inch, 4 to 5 centimeters. It's pretty gentle, which makes a beautiful seed bed or conditions for direct seeding into. So this is Elliot's invention, and it's been a game changer. I'll just give you a little on here. So it just runs right over the surface. It's the last stage in our bed prep before direct seeding. And prior to this, it was a rake, which is fine, but you get pretty tired on that when you've got a large area to do. So just before I move forward with some more tools, the one kind of concept that John Mutton Fortier I think has really made clear to us, and we'd like to present this to others. And I ask this question when I'm presenting: is what is the one thing you don't have on the farm? And we get some great answers for this. People are like, mushrooms, orchard, oh, it's got to be tractor. And these are all great considerations. But once we recognize the one thing we don't have on the farm is time, that's when we become smarter, more efficient, and more effective in our day. And we can achieve more and finish at 5 and go home and see the kids. So that was a really big impact on us. Here's another tool invented by Elliot Coleman. And I'd just like to add in that Elliot said to me, so he conceived all of these ideas, and then other people took them on and did the R&D and then manufactured them. And Elliot said to me, if I started a tool company, I wouldn't have been able to farm. And I really respect that with Elliot, that he farmed his whole life. He could have stopped farming, just written more books, more online courses, had a big tool company. But I worked on his farm in 2018. He's retired, but he's the first one out at 5 in the morning doing cultivation in the field, getting beds ready for the team for the day. And then he finishes at 11 a.m. So I guess when you're farming is a lifestyle, you never retire. It's something that you live and breathe. So here's a tool that Elliot conceived, and he gave the idea to a 16-year-old called Jonathan, who has a business called Farmer's Friend in Tennessee. And this is called the Quick Cut Greens Harvester, which enables you to cut salad in the field super quick. So this is a 50-foot bed, 15 meters. We can cut a bed of salad in 6 minutes with this. It runs off a battery drill, and it has a sharp blade at the front and some ropes that gently catch the salad into the back. And again, this is Elliot's invention, and it just runs over the top of the field salad that we've direct seeded. So again, we're not on hands and knees with a knife. We're standing up and just cutting and collecting. It just with a massive transformation. We also use this for cutting our microgreens, which we're going to come to during this presentation as well. So there's just two examples of game changers only recently in the last 20 years that now make growing food on a very small area viable. So let's keep moving forward. And just kind of big picture stuff now too with where this movement's going. I'd say that with all of the different methods that I've trained in, the kind of two overriding, how do I say, the things that I've studied that have really made the biggest impact over the whole business are Toyota manufacturing, their lean decision making, their lean systems, and holistic management with the decision making. And I'll come back to how that, most people think holistic management about animals, but really that framework has enabled us to make decisions for a dynamic, intensive, fast-moving business on the spot, really considering where every decision we make affects the greater whole. So it's a kind of a tool to enable you to make decisions, being aware that as we're making decisions, it's actually affecting everything else. And so here's where I see this movement going. And as we move forward in the next decade or two, that we are standardizing our farms more, so they're just more strategic, more effective. And we have finally found a baby tractor that fits over the garden beds, which are 75 centimeters wide or 30-inch. And this is going to be a game changer for taking a lot of the work out. And it's an Italian hill country viticulture tractor. It's tiny and it's 56 horsepower. So we're designing farms like this one I've designed in Mongaroa Farm, and where you can now take a lot more of the labor out. And so why I kind of want to bring this into the conversation is I can see in the future that our small scale food production is actually going to be a little bit bigger. And rather than kind of sitting at the 1 acre size, I can see us being 4, 5, 10 acres of production. And the reason that I'm kind of wanted to start this conversation is because there's a lot of capital and investment to build a family farm from scratch when you're not taking it over from your parents and your grandparents and so on. And that's been our journey, which I'm going to show you. So for your return on investment, I can see that our farms are going to get a little bit bigger. But the general movement has been farms have gotten smaller. I'd say 80% of growers that I have seen become successful have gotten smaller and more productive and more financially viable. So I invite you to check out a farm in Tennessee called Rose Creek Farm. Just beautiful. And same, Ray and his family started with nothing, did a whole lot of work that wasn't bringing an income. And I think Ray's happy for me to share this, but this season, they just turned over 650,000 US on 3/4 of an acre. And I'm not saying it's easy, and it's a hustle to get there, but this is the kind of success you can have from nothing. And kind of the farms that we're watching are seeing each year, you're producing more food from the same area for not a lot more labor. So pretty exciting times. Watch this space. So here's where we live. We are in New Zealand, Aotearoa, which means Māori for New Zealand, which means land of the long white cloud. And we're on the most western part of our country. That we stick out into the ocean on a peninsula, and we have a lot of wind and a lot of rain. So 2.5 meters of rain. And last year we had a little cyclone come through that was 70-mile winds. So we just have to be adaptive with working around that. We are five kilometers from the ocean, and our whole peninsula was made up from mountain activity. So we're on a mountain ash subsoil. So let's keep look at my time here. Let's keep moving from here. Here's the smallest mountain we live next to, and right at the bottom of the screen, you can see us. And so it's wet and windy, and there's not much vegetable production in our region. It's all cows. So that's an advantage for us, but we're in a conservative space to sell food, and there's not much vegetable production because it's just too wet. So we can have 10 months of rain and 2 months of sun if we're lucky. Let's jump to I've kind of taken my brief with the 6 subjects that I could have talked about, and I've chosen all of them for you. So just to be clear, the market garden is the financial part of our business these days. But I've been farming now 30 years. I'm in my early 50s, and I've been fortunate to travel the world, delivering education and chasing farmers around their farms. We have livestock on our farm, but it's more for landscape management, breeding for future mothers, and for self-provision. So it doesn't take a lot of land to produce your own meat. I'll say we produce half our diet for hardly any of the work on, in total, about 12 acres. 2 of those sites are the neighbors that we graze. And here's some lambs just come into the ridge. And I'd like to kind of, a bit controversial, sheep don't like tall grass and don't let it get too tall. We've seen over the years that they prefer flowers, seed heads, and broadleafs before the grass. And so we are zero input with our sheep. We've never planted a seed, never used fertilizer, none of this stuff, and we got some really good results. So we started with mixed breeds, and then we bred over the ewes, the mothers, with Texel, and so they're really a meat breed. And yeah, so they live outdoors. We're not cutting hay or buying anything in for them, and we're just getting some really good results. We've been grazing about 15 years now with the sheep, and you can read through some of the key points on holistic management up here on the left. But I'd just like to talk about some of the things that we've seen happening over the years, just with mimicking the mob grazing phenomena, kind of popularized by a lot of farmers, but especially Joel Salatin, Greg Judy, Jim Garish, Alan Nation. There's a lot of information about mob grazing out there, pretty much all about beef. And so we just transferred that straight to our sheep production. And for those of you who have sheep or understand a bit about it, here's some of our numbers. Our lambing rate is sitting at 170 to 215%, which means on average a mother has 1.7 to 2.1 babies a year. We have 0 facial eczema, which is really from forcing the animal to eat low into the spore count, and it's very high in our region. We have no foot rot because they're always standing on a residual or grass that's left behind. We have no fly strike, which is when it's a tough one. It's when a fly lays an egg on a sheep, and the conditions are perfect for the maggot to eat the sheep from the outside to the inside. And we get around that one with timed shearing. And so this is a zero input model that is super fun. And let's go forward here. I just want to get I'm going to turn my sound levels down here. We've also been really influenced by the work of Temple Grandin with low stress stock handling, and her mentor, Bert Smith. And we've just implemented the low stress stock handling right from day one. And so I'm going to play a 45-second live take video. These are my mother sheep, the ewes, and they had never been on either of these properties. There's no fences to get from at some places to move them. And one of the principles of low stress is lead the animals, don't push them from behind. So let's have a little look at the move. So when that went up on social media, people thought it was hilarious, and I got called things like the sheep whisperer, and that's not normal. That's just the most basic principle of low stress stock handling. And I'll just add in there, you can turn an animal by working its shoulder. And I'm going to keep moving forward with the gardening now, but check out low stress stock handling. It's a game changer. You'll now be able to go to the neighboring farm and move the animals for them. Heaps of fun. Moving the animals is the most fun part with animal production. So let's move into next topic here, composting. And here's a little bit about where we started. In the foreground on the left is Mount Taranaki. It's a super volcano. It's connected to all the other volcanoes of the North Island, and it's blown flat and rebuilt multiple times. The other three mountains have blown up and are extinct. And so our whole peninsula is just made from explosions and ash fallout. And we bought our property in 2004. It has a nice aspect, but we knew that in 1975, they cut the beautiful topsoil off, pushed it over the hill to make it flat to cut hay. So we're on a compact volcanic ash subsoil, no organic matter, and we had no time, no money, two young babies, and there was nothing on the farm. No, not the house, no power, no trees, just nothing. And so that was our starting point. First thing we did was make a heap of compost. I'm not going to go too much into compost because I know there's been some great presentations on compost in the Soil Summit already, but I'm just going to say that it's paramount for transitioning a tired soil to get beautiful results and nutrient dense food. So we make all our own compost. You can do a calculation on how much you need by total growing area times 25 mils a year. And that's quite a lot that you now need. And then you times that by 3 or 4 as the original inputs you need to construct. In short, I think the market garden is a hungry beast, and it needs a lot of inputs. And so our point of difference, we don't try to be different, but our style, I should say, is we've always produced our own inputs. Compost, seed raising mix, biologicals. So this is brand new ground that's been opened, and this is really early days in starting with the market garden. So let's jump into soil health. Now, I ran an event with Nicole Masters recently, and she's got a saying, dirty roots and clean worms. These are biological indicators to look for. And with our practice, we've always seen dirty roots, even our propagation and in the field. And when I showed Nicole this picture, she looked at me and she said, you don't need to do nothing. And I have to disagree. Like, this is a sign photosynthesis is working well. But we know, and we've known for a long time, that our next stage in our journey is fertility. And I've got a couple of things I'm going to share with you soon about that. So you should see your soil sticking to your roots, and your worms should jump out the ground clean. So here's how we prepare our beds. And so we have no tractor. The whole farm is small scale tools, and the tools that we have are run from drills and batteries. So we're a battery powered farm. We've developed a fork that is half of a broad fork, and it's super ergonomic and has allowed us to create deep living soils. And this is the ongoing bed prep work here. It's low cardio. If you want to get fit, you'll have to go to the gym. And it's allowed us to really create a deep living soil. We've measured our infiltration. So in our high rainfall, this is key for us to accept the rainfall into the soil. And we're also, on the left, you'll see the green shade net. That's 70% shade. I learned this tip in California. This is our mobile mulch. We are covering a bed that we've direct seeded for the germination year round with this. So the hotter and drier you are, or the wetter you are, this is like a what's a blanket or a soil protector and a germination. It increases your germination and saves water. So we've been using that from the early days. And so it's the bed preparation that allows the intensive planting. We have skinny paths, generally more rows of crops in our beds than conventional agriculture. And this is part of the concept that allows you to grow a lot of food in a small area. And it really, the intensive crops are the mulch, living mulch, if we call it that. In spring, generally, we do a lot of interplanting, especially in the greenhouse. And this is where we can grow successions of crops in the same space. So here we have parsley and purplet onions. And let me think. And once there was a third crop in there, I'm just forgetting what it was at the moment, but when one crop comes out, another one goes in between. As long as they don't grow on top of the other, it's a little more management, but it can really work, especially in spaces indoors where your return on investment is much stronger. So when our tomatoes and cucumbers go in, generally we're putting a very fast crop intercropped on the side, so that by the time the cukes and tomatoes are growing up and shading everything, the fast crops come out. So really the timing thing is key here. And then peak season, we're not doing so much intercropping because we've just got so much on. Going back, when we started the farm, we made a lot of compost. Then we did 10 years of cover cropping in winter. And as we developed the market garden, and we really didn't have the space and time because we're so small scale to be doing cover crops. But I want to show you some of the cover crops that we have been doing in the past. And this one I'm pretty excited about. I like to joke that this is me on my soapbox. This is planting pea shoots in the field. And this is where, if you can't be green if you're in the red. This is where sustainability meets profitability. So this is a super fast cover crop. We have just put soaked the pea seeds, put them on top of the soil, and put plywood and weights on top for them to germinate. Here's another example. And then we hand cut the first growth, and then we leave it for the regrowth as the cover crop. We're harvesting in summer in 12 days, very financial. And the regrowth is fixing nitrogen, and the seeding rate is just off the charts. Something like 10 ton of seed to the hectare. Obviously not planting everywhere with this, but so this is a super fast cover crop that puts a heap of root material down deep in not many days. Pea shoots, and it goes as a garnish for chefs and in our salad mix. So there's the first harvest. Other cover, we kind of realized too that there's vegetables we grow that are cover crops, like coriander, massive deep taproot, brings up nutrients to the surface. Beautiful crop. We grow this one year round. We sell it with the top of the root on, very popular. Let's jump quickly into some biologicals, which we're pretty new at. And here's a tip I'd like to share. So the season before, we started spraying a lot of biologicals, and we didn't really have much perspective with it. And so I was paying my employee to spray a lot of stuff, took a lot of hours. And I think this is my big takeaway from my time with Nicole about 3 months ago is when you start, just do tiny tests. Nicole's mantra is measure, amend, measure. And so we went into a paddock, into the pasture, and we just got electric fence standards, and we made 8 little tiny sectors, little spray bottle, and we sprayed each sector with a different biological, waited 40 minutes, and then tested with the refractometer to see which biologicals are giving us a lift in the sugars, and then you can go and spray everything. So we were like doing half bed tests with one thing and paying my employees, spraying, not seeing results, kind of just put it on the back burner. So that's my little takeaway of biologicals is little tests, you get the signal of the increase in your sugar lift, and then you can hit it. Right from day one, this is me back in the day, and John Jevons in California. He's the author of How to Grow More Vegetables. I did a lot of time with John. First time I'd seen a compost sifter. It's just a screen that shakes over the wheelbarrow. And I was pretty excited about, low or no input market gardening. So we're able to sift compost and garden soil to make seed raising mix, which is it's a beautiful result that also just involves labor. And I've added our microgreens into the biologicals here because a lot of the microgreen industry is grown in imported substrate under light, and we're making it in homemade seed raising mix. And we know that we can see that in 6 days the crops are already have soil to root contact, dirty roots, that they're feeding the soil, and this is a big part of our business, growing super fast crops in a tiny area. 30 square meter greenhouse, we're doing 2.5 ton, 2,500 kilograms of microgreens annually. And we are germinating them in these trays before we unstack them to the bottom shelf. Then they go to the top shelf, and we cut them with the quick cut greens harvester. Now, we only sell some of these as garnish. The rest we combine with field salad, and it's been really popular across town. So the empty landscape that we purchased, we set up tree planting earlier on. All of our mature tree lots now we undergraze, like the savanna or silver pasture with the animals. This shot's 2-3 years old. We've developed more land since, but at this stage we're 130 50-foot beds, and I just want to give you a little tool to be able to measure your potential turnover from an area, whether it's an existing garden or it's an empty field that you're planning to do one. We are growing year round. Our beds are 50 foot long. So if you take a very conservative turnover from one bed harvest, we are sitting at $400. We can do 0, we can do $1,300. So your low average, and your number of beds, let's choose a number, 100. How many times you plant in that bed a year? 4. It could be once, it could be 6. It's all determined by your market, your sales. So 100 beds grown 4 times a year at $400 turnover is $160,000. So that's about this garden without the black tarps down the back. Then your greenhouse. We now have more greenhouse. We have 30 beds indoors where you can grow 6 times a year at $400. And microgreens is really about sales potential, but we're doing $50,000 in micros. So outdoors, we're sitting at $160,000. Indoors, 72. and micros 50. This tiny little garden's turning over 230,000 annually. We've been sitting at 250 for the last 3 years. I want to just show you a little thing here. If you've got strong sales streams, which is where we start with planning your future market garden, and you can grow 5 crops a year, that's not about the weather, that's about your sales streams. Look what happens. 100 beds, 5 times a year, times $400. And then this is just one more crop per year. 30 beds indoors now times 7 crops, and still sitting at the same micros. We went same area from 230,000 to 334,000. And I want to just kind of push that one, that it's about mindset. You don't have to get bigger to be more profitable. So going into COVID, everything stopped. We started supplying the supermarket. COVID went away, and we continued with all our other stores. We doubled our turnover that year and every year since on the same land area. And if your small scale salad has to be the hub or the core of your turnover, and so we've got head lettuce here and direct seeded baby Mizuna, our baby rocket, and fly through these. And a big part of our work for all market gardens, but especially salad, is post-harvest wash and pack. So we set up a really streamlined wash and pack where our biggest single harvest is 150 kilograms. We harvest and deliver twice a week within 10 kilometers from the farm. Here's a winter shot. We're now expanding to the left, new greenhouse going in. That's in full production now. And the last little paddock down the bottom left, we're developing that. And then that's all the land we have. Our limitation is we're in a conservative sales stream. That's the part we're working on stronger. And so consistency, we're supplying 1 supermarket, 3 retail stores, 8 restaurants year round. We are tracking the days to maturity, which means how long the vegetable takes to grow. With this really simple system, it's just the farm map, whiteboard, and every garden bed gets the name of the crop, the date, how many grams planted, if it's direct seeded as it happens. It's in wash and pack, which is also where the tool shed where we're dispatched to go and plant. And so we can track how fast crops are currently growing through summer and winter. And this is really what helps us with our consistency, also by adding our optionality. So the salad mix for us is what really helps us with our consistency. It has the same ingredients, but we have license, I should say, to be able to more lettuce, less lettuce, more Mizuna, and so on. That's where we get our consistency. And we're tracking orders and harvests on here. And really, we prioritize restaurant orders, which is the smaller part of the business now. And then the majority, which is the overflow of our salads, that goes into the mix, which goes across retail. Communication with our outlets is super easy. It's just a photo. I love the one on, this is my favorite text, the one on the right. A fridge that's nearly empty and hammered, which means we need to hustle and get back down there and stock them. Let's go into marketing. 10 minutes. So we've got some of the strongest retail stores across town and restaurants. The first retail store we started in was our independent fishery. And, you know, I'll be clear, they don't make a lot. The people that on sale of vegetables don't make a lot of money. That's not, even if I gave them the vegetables, they're still not going to make a lot of money. The real value is in the customer convenience, coming in to buy quality fish, and they can get in the shop eggs, they can get like chili sauces, and we've got our fridge with all our variety in there, so they can buy all the ingredients for a really good quality, affordable meal at home. And as COVID came closer, restaurants got quieter, our retail stores got really busy because people were wanting to really look after themselves at home. They reassess their values. And so the whole thing, it's very simple, is complementary and convenient. So that's kind of our gig. Here's one of our restaurants we supply. We've been there 5 years, and they do things like our salad they call Roebuck greens, our carrots they call Roebuck carrots, which is, it's a really nice marketing tool. And then we put our carrots in the supermarket, and they're called Roebuck carrots. So people are like, I can get restaurant food in the supermarket. So we like being in front of everyone. Here we are, day 3 of COVID and lockdown. The supermarket had been asking us for 2 years to supply them. And I just thought that classic, wow, we can't do that. We've got to get big, build a massive greenhouse, get more employees. Day 3 of lockdown, everything else had stopped. They invited us in. I said, yes, we can do it. I put a sticker on the top of the fridge, loaded the fridge up right next to the toilet paper. And we now have local, regenerative, nutrient-dense food available in front of everyone. 23,000 people shop here. There's 80,000 people in our small town. And this was kind of my protest against the food system, not the supermarket, but we're right next to hydroponics. And we don't say regenerative salad or nothing like this. It just says Roebuck Farm. And the feedback we're getting, especially from mothers shopping, is thank you so much. Your food is beautiful. My children are now eating vegetables again. So it's been, I'd say retail has been the making of our business, and we've coached a lot of other growers into this space, and they've said the same thing. If we weren't in retail, we would be out. And so do we do a vegetable box? Yes, we do. It looks like this. You get it here. Supermarket trolley. You put your order together and off you go. There's a quick visual 3 years ago. You can see super tight. There's no room for a tractor. Wash and pack central. We live at the front. We've got 2 houses there. We've just launched an Airbnb. That's the tiny home down the back. And that's me. I think I've got 5 minutes early to open up for questions. There's a lot more that I could say in there, but I just wanted to kind of push across, showcase what we're doing. I think I'd like to say that a little bit more about us and our family. Well, I've got a minute. I grew up very close to the beach. Dad's a tradesman, electrician, and a surfer. And so I'm in my early 50s. When I was 13, Dad taught me how to read the weather, the isobars and the wind for the surf, and that's been a great tool for farming. Mum is a hardcore homesteader, like self-reliant, you name it. She makes shaving cream, bread, preserves salves, seed saving. She should she should have an online course. Mum is a machine. She's tiny. She is 4'11". And I'm going metric now. 38-kilogram powerhouse. Her name's Sue, and we call her Tsunami. So that's where I get it from. And I think out of school I did design, 4 years design, where I met my wife. She did fine art, and then I just started in agriculture, conventional orchard work for 4 years, strawberries, stone fruit, apples. And the real turning point was when I did my apprenticeship at Koonga Institute, which is our heritage fruit and vegetable seed bank. And they were using John Jevons' biointensive method, so and permaculture. I kind of had the combination there. At 27, that's when I went, right, this is what I want to be doing. And that's when, I think I found the work-life balance, because work was now fun. And then moving forward, I went to California, did a season with John Jevons while Tanya was pregnant with our first daughter, finishing her teaching degree, and came back, bought our land, set up to grow heritage vegetable seed, started grazing, traveling Australia a lot, teaching like the homesteading biointensive. then that gave me access to seeing more and more production. And so people say, what do you do on holiday? It's farming. I think I've been through the US 10 times, Canada, just designed a farm south of Georgia. So food production has been my vehicle to seeing the world, and it's just been super fun. Never had a motel, never had a rental car. Farming is a beautiful way to travel and see and meet people and eat well.
So powerful, Jodi. There's so many takeaways from this session with you, and I thank you for all the effort you put into putting this together for us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. A couple questions came up. Tell us more about playing with a full deck.
Nice. Okay. So playing with full deck, let me think. I think one thing with the holistic management that's kind of sat with me, because it's really easy to try and manage too much and to get burnt out. And I think this really hit me because it's super simple, but a really basic goal is to manage diversity as simply as possible. And that's what we strive to do.
So tell me more about that. What does that look like in a day or in a week or in a
So
season?
I'll just give you, I mean, it's everywhere, but I'll just give you a couple of examples that I didn't touch on during the presentation. And this is one that comes up all the time with my consults with growers, especially experienced growers that grow good food, but generally they say, I'm struggling with systems, it's chaos and consistency. So firstly, with the grazing, we were really focused on our days recovery, like how many days has the grass grown before we come back? And that was like a decade's work. And so our recovery period for grazing in summer was about 90 days. And depending if we were doing fattening a lamb or doing restoration on a landscape, it could be the ridge or the valley, we were sitting at 120, 150 days in winter. So that kind of concept of looking at your day's recovery, as soon as I started the market garden, it was a bit of a no-brainer. I was like, how long do the vegetables take to grow? And then just putting in that easy system to track on the whiteboard, which is in wash and pack, and where we seed from. So we know how long things are taking to grow constantly. And also other things like every time we direct seed, so here comes the Toyota manufacturing influence, we just put in strategies. So I can invite you to my farm and I say, can you please plant carrots? You have the carrot seed. It has the current live weight, how many grams of seed in there, and it has the name of the roller that you put in the seeder. So you go plant the carrots, you come back, you weigh the seed again, and then you know how many grams you planted, and you put that onto the farm map, onto the bed you just planted. So if you have an error planting, like the seed hopper's not engaged and you plant 0 seed, you got it straight away. And you can go back and, correct the job. So I don't know if I explained that well, but those are just like 2 little examples of how we're managing, a fast-moving, dynamic, intensive market garden. And I'm also, so I farm Monday to Saturday, 7:30 a.m. till 5. I choose those hours. We're having a big project development year this year. I could just work 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, if I wanted. Kind of context too, remember we're building the farm from nothing, not inheriting the family farm. And then I think the other thing that I'm really strong with that's been key for us, and unfortunately it's a little bit unique, but building in optionality, probably not the technical term, across everything, all our decision making has really given us the flexibility to manage more simply. So I'll just give one little example. Most people I see do salad mix in a crisis mode, and we were the same. We lost half our production one winter in 10 minutes to a big wind. Like all of our lettuce is gone. And we were like, what do we do now? We've got to keep our fridges full. And so we planted more pea shoots, planted more microgreens, and direct seeded Mizuna. We just we've got to grow our faster stuff. and then we combined them together, and we called that Leaves and Shoots, and that's been a business in itself. So I own it. We started in a time crisis makes you better. That's when we started the salad mix. That's when we gained flexibility and optionality, and we never let go of it. Moving forward a couple of seasons, we realized, hey, we can do this with root vegetables. We call it Roebuck Roasties, which is a little kind of hint. You just throw it in the oven and roast it. And so we have 5 root vegetables that are really the overflow from restaurant. So tiny carrots, tiny beetroots, and then crops we can't sell in a dairy farming region, Tokyo turnips, radishes, and I don't know if I said, and the small beets. So we can, and a fresh onion, we can mix 3 of any 5 or 6 of these together as our overflow, zero waste, and into town it goes. So the grade 1 carrot goes to restaurant, carrots too big, go to retail. So that those are kind of, I think that's our style, but we've realized it allows us to manage more, and it allows me to do stuff like this, outreach, and the tool innovation. I can't stop myself with that one. Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid. That's a saying we have in New Zealand.
Yes, keep it simple. And I just love your curiosity and also noticing where the openings are, right? Where the windows are for what people are looking for, and also finding the customer's language. Like, what are they looking for? How can we make it more relatable? Yeah, really,
Yeah.
really powerful.
Yeah.
What biologicals do you use? Are you making them? Are you buying them? Combination?
We uh so we are generally we're making them. Yep. We've just set up for uh we just started with a little bit of Johnson Sioux compost for making compost tea, worm farm for worm castings tea, fish hydrolysate, we buy that in, but we could make it. I guess it's a trade-off. We try to make it, but then if it's time intensive, like I wouldn't make biochar because it's time intensive, we would source it. What else are we doing? We have comfrey brew. I have a couple of brought in biologicals, and we're starting with testing them as singles before we do combinations to see what is giving us a lift, and then increasing that as well. We're also looking at soil drench, using it as a soil drench or a foliar feed, and new greenhouses we have on drip irrigation. So we're looking at adding in fertigation in there as well. And then just one little thing I didn't mention about compost, we make all our own, but we can't buy anything. The only compost I can buy that's good quality is on the other side of our island. Yeah. So, but I found a local company that are just putting together the ingredients, and then they deliver them to us, and then we wet it and turn it. And so that is organic chicken manure, soft whitewood shavings, activated biochar, humates, a few trace elements, and the whole thing sprayed with fish hydrolysate and delivered. So I've said this one for years, and we're just really starting to push with it, that fertility is the next chapter with our business.
And what do you mean by that?
Just really, I think getting some tools together, really, I said, the brain, for being able to measure, amend, and measure, and know that what we're doing is giving us results. So yeah, we're really excited with Nicole's work, and I'd like to mention Jules Matthews. She works a lot with Nicole. Jules is Integrity Soils as well, and she's at Mongaroa Farm where we've designed the market garden. So we're super lucky as Kiwis to have Nicole and Jules around.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Thank you for giving her a shout out. And there's the question here: how many people work on your farm?
So prior to the expansion, we've just built our biggest greenhouse, which is the biggest. We're having our biggest investment year, infrastructure expansion year. We've just got our new greenhouse We're selling crops out of it now. It's 400 square meter high wind design greenhouse. It's a big change for us being able to go indoors. 110,000 finished. So your greenhouse is never big enough. We're already going to add to it. So prior to the new greenhouse, we were 130 50-foot beds, high rotation, 2 small greenhouses and a microgreens house, 3 retail stores, 1 supermarket, 8 restaurants, 2.5 skilled workers, but generally 3 full-timers in summer and 2 in winter.
Hmm.
And then,
Is that including yourself?
yes, yeah, yeah. And as we move forward, it's kind of the chicken before the egg thing. The new infrastructures, we knew that we had to, we did that without our bank loan. We knew that we had to get this up and running before taking more employment.
Yes.
So we've got a big expansion year this year. So eventually we're going to have at capacity, 40 beds indoors, 150 outdoors, 4 staff, including me in summer, 2 to 3 in winter.
Wow. It's
Yeah.
awesome. And so how much land are you farming then, including your just your greenhouses and your beds outside?
It's under an acre.
Under an acre. Incredible.
Yeah.
So Oliver, watch the replay of this because he does answer some of your questions that you put in the chat about is a third of an acre a good size? I think he just answered it again. It is a good size for one person to work. So
Yes. Well,
yes, yes. Um, Jodi, what the theme of the Soil Summit this year is biodiversity, cultivating life. So when you think about biodiversity, what does that mean to you?
I think what we're seeing on the farm now compared to when we brought the empty, there was nothing here. The native bird life, the insect life, the people that our business draws in, our team and community, just the life. It's beautiful. Like we have our native wood pigeons that live here now. I'll kind of skip across a few things. Our pasture, we have 16 species in there. It's like a prairie land, things flowering. Yeah, it's beautiful. Insects everywhere. We've first frogs on the farm the last couple of years. That's a nice sign.
Mhm.
Worm count on the increase. So yeah, seeing diversity increase from nothing. Like a bird wouldn't want to live here 20 years ago. There's nothing to do. But I'd like to kind of add with this one. So the regenerative, I think I might say it right, symbiotic relationship is the bird follows the herbivore. And in nature, there's a taller prairie land, more diversity, more life. The reason the bird is on the herbivore is because the herbivore rustles the prairie land and the bird's got the viewpoint to get the insect life. And so that's why the kiwi is on the sheep on our logo, because that's what we're seeing. So we have starlings riding on our sheep grazing under our trees. Yeah, I think it gives, and all the beauty aside, I think it just gives you a really nice buffer.
It does. It's beautiful. And what about cultivating life? What does that mean to you?
Um, I think straight away the word community, and I think that we're a very small food in terms of the scale. We're a very small food production business, but we're having a very big impact on the contemporary movement that's moving forward. And so for me, cultivating life is about connecting with people of all types, but especially food producers and in different climates, different methods. I really think that my style has always been, I love old people, young people, rednecks, hippies, everyone, and that there's stuff to learn everywhere. And so I think generally we need to look out of our little sector more, whether that's life or food production, but I'll stick with food production. If you go and farm in a climate completely opposite to yours, in a different scale, and so on. There's a lot to learn. So we've just found a training system for tomatoes and cucumbers this year called Quipler, and it's 10% of the time to train and grow, and it's 25 years old, and it's from Big Ag in the Netherlands, and this is it. This is it. If you don't look, if you say the Big Ag is bad, I'm not even, I'm going to protest against it. We don't get to pick up what works for them and put that tool into our toolbox. So I think for me, that's what community is. It's the people uh, that you have a lot of give and take with, that you can learn from, that you can support. And I think for me, community is when you're busy or under the pump, it's your people that come to save your ass. Sorry to say it that way, but yeah, when someone can see that you're having a tough time, and they're busy too, but they're like, mate, I'll be there. Like Cyclone Gabrielle last year, we prepared for a day for 70, 80-mile winds.
Mm.
And it was the busiest people we know that were like, you're right, you need help.
Yep. I
Yeah.
feel you on that one. I love
Yeah.
how you just invite us to have eyes wide open. It's not just wide open on what we want and what we're creating and where we're going, but it's eyes wide open. What's in the peripheral? Like what else is there that we may or may not be seeing? It's beautiful. Margaret, yes, no, that's just his vegetable garden that's in the green that's a greenhouse, and the vegetable beds that's on the acre or so.
Yeah.
How much land in total are you?
Our home site is 7 acres. The market garden's under an acre, and then I have two other titles that I graze. I used to have more, so yeah, I graze three other neighboring properties as well.
Oh,
Hi
wonderful.
to Margaret Lloyd, good friend that I worked with in California 21 years ago.
Hi, Jodi. Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. I'm glad you're hopping in here, supporting each other. I love it. Deanna asked, do you have any ideas about how settlers and local indigenous populations can come together to understand food systems and solutions that help everyone? Or what are your ideas on that?
Great, Chris. Could you ask me that one more time, please?
What are your ideas about how settlers and local indigenous populations can come together to understand food systems and solutions that help
Yeah.
everyone?
Big question.
Mhm.
Oh, well, I think it just comes back to the last question too. That I don't. This is probably very inappropriate, but get over yourself and open yourself up and be nice and do things for other people. The look at the history. The Māori food production in New Zealand is beautiful. They were smart. They
Mhm.
were slightly transient. They were not French intensive market gardeners. They were growing storage crops, and I might be incorrect, but for a very little amount of work, they were growing a lot of food that they could store. So Māori called food kai. They loved their kai, and they had their storehouses. So settlers and indigenous included, but everyone, we need to learn from each other. And I think that was my message in the last answer too. That
Mhm.
never say never. You know, you'll
Yeah.
catch yourself out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I am with you on that one. I love the like imagine if we just all put everything down on the ground and held hands and looked at how we can learn from each other and support each other rather than how we haven't or how we're not or how who's better or who's worse or what if we all just gleaned from each other's wisdom. So
Mm.
powerful, Jodi. Um, there's another question here. It's can you describe your microgreen flat system? So what you use and do in your greenhouses to ensure your year-round production.
Yes, I can. And
What do
we
you?
just before I go, we have a newsletter every week we have a lot of information about a subject and a YouTube clip that goes up. We have some content in there about the seed resin mix, filling flats, harvesting, but we just generically very low tech, simple recipe. No there's no patent on this. Our seed resin mix is half garden soil, half homemade compost. You can alter that, but it's that simple. And it goes through a compost sifter, which we made. John Jevons had one in California. And we use a 1/4 inch woven screen, and we just shake through it, makes it super fine. That's our medium for propagation and for microgreens. We use the paper pot tray for microgreens. We use a drop seeder, which is a perspex box that lets the seeds out to plant them, and then we stack them on top of each other. And I think the other thing too about propagation, microgreens house too, is if you have a disease issue, it's not necessarily soil. In our case, it's the design and management. So airflow is, and the design, being able to manage the temperature and the extremes is a big part of taking the stress out. I'm not sure if that helps.
Yeah, I think it does. He's saying thank you so much. Yeah, it's really valuable. Really, really valuable, Jodi. Jodi, when it comes to mindset, and we can wrap up here pretty quickly. When it comes to mindset, what do you wish people understood about being in the green? Like when you're in the red, you can't be in the green. What do you wish and most want people to know about?
Well, I think okay, so, I hope I'm about to come back to this question. Conventional veg production in New Zealand recently announced it's no longer viable to grow vegetables for an income. And I'm seeing also a lot of small scale growers grow beautiful food, but struggling financially. And I've talked with some of my, mentors. We all need mentors. And there's some, conventional graziers are struggling too. And I said to one of my mentors, Darren Doherty, Rigurians in Australia, I said, Daz, I'm seeing a lot of small scale growers that aren't profitable. And he said in his deep voice, well, mate, same with the graziers. And this is what Darren's advice was that, and the Pareto principle, 80-20 golden rule, Darren said 80% of graziers are struggling. And he said the 20% that aren't, it's mindset, and they're keeping on learning. And I was going to bring it up on the last few questions too, but the thing that excites me and drives me, there's innovation in this space and the tools and that, but I am not a master market gardener. There isn't one. Mother Nature's the boss. That's what's fun about farming is as soon as you think you learned it all, well, you get ready, storm's going to come sort you out. That's what I love about agriculture and farming. It's just every day is new. There's just so much to learn. We know nothing. I don't know if I answered that.
Yeah, well, I think that's a beautiful summary is to be the learner, it's like becoming a master learner. Maybe that's what a master
Nice.
learner is, a master
Yeah,
learner.
very nice. Yeah, the L plate t-shirts.
Pardon me?
When you learn to drive a car, you have an L plate on the car. We should
Yeah.
all have an L plate on a car for the rest of our life.
Yes, yes.
We're
Yeah,
learning.
imagine if we
Yeah.
wore that on our brains and on our hearts. Yeah, that would change a lot of experiences for people. Is there anything else, Jodi, that we haven't touched on that you feel is really important, like a question that you always wish that you were asked?
Not sure about a question, but I guess you want to be market gardening or in food production. My journey is I studied design in the institution, but I learned farming in the field
Mhm.
with farmers and mentors. And so our journey, my suggestion is get a couple of seasons under your belt within some production that you really admire, and before transition to your own business, keep the day job for a while. That's a thing. There is, if you're starting this from scratch, it's the long patient game.
Mhm.
You can grow an income on third of an acre, to the question before. It's got to be salad.
Yes, I appreciate you saying that, Jodi, because I mean, my family is a market gardener. We have been doing that pretty much all my entire life, so it's a long time. And that's one of the things my dad said just the other day in a conversation, because he feels frustration about all this no-till, low-till, well, mostly no-till movement, and people making like massive amounts of money off of a little part. He's like, but what people don't talk about is that it's greens. Like you have to grow
Yep.
greens. That's a big part of it. So I appreciate you really naming that to help people understand that that is a really big part of the cyclical nature of
Sure.
that
I
density.
can if I can piece the recipe, can I add two things to there? So
Yeah.
one grower I didn't mention, Curtis Stone, the urban farmer. He's retired now. He's gone. He's living in the hills, kind of prepping. But Curtis was started from nothing. Um, didn't have a mentor in this space. I think they called it spin farming. He leased 5 people's back lawns, grew vegetables on it, kept the information, got better and better and better. In his 8th season, he's in British Columbia, turned over 130,000 on third of an acre. And each year he dropped the broader variety of crops and narrowed down. So he only got to those numbers pretty much when he was just salad. He's been a big influence on food across the world. And here's another one. This is kind of our thinking. In terms of profitability, it's not about money.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be growing food if I wanted to get rich. But we have a rich lifestyle. We eat well. We have a beautiful life. One way we're measuring crops, I could say to you, our most profitable crop is, and I'll just choose a crop, carrots. And generally, when I hear a comment like this, it's because total sales, we sold the most carrots, in terms of dollars. But here's a way to look at it. If you take a crop and a yield, so let's say one bed of carrots, and then you divide your turnover by how many days it takes to grow, it's very interesting. And your carrot might be 90, 120, 150 days. So at 150 days, the money per day gets worse. And we can do $1,300 of carrots in a 50-foot bed. And that sounds real good. But carrots are still work. We use a pressure washer to wash them and stuff like that. But when you look at your income per day that a crop is paying you, I'm going to suggest that if you're very small scale, your crops that are the most profitable are the crops that pay you the most per day. And so again, that's where summer is a beautiful thing, because you can grow that coriander in 40 days instead of 90 in winter. There's more income per day. So if you can match your sales to a location where you have a lot of summer tourism and food grows fast, we haven't even touched the limit here of what turnover we could do on less than an acre. But yeah, go through that process, look at your production and start saying what is paying me per day and what is the numbers, and salad's going to be somewhere up the top.
I love that. That's a super hack. Thank you for that,
It's
Jodi.
a super hack, nice term.
It is. It's
I write
golden,
that.
because
Yeah,
I remember, yeah, I'm like growing up and selling vegetables off the farm and stuff like that. And uh, you know, some days it was tough when we weren't when buying vegetables from local farmers was not a cool thing. And
yeah,
people would squawk at paying, $1 for a bunch of carrots, let alone $3 or whatever it is today.
yeah.
And us having to find where that market was. Well, who is willing to pay us for it? Because you have to make sure that you are getting enough back from the sales of your food to pay yourself and to pay the cost of that production. And I think that's a barrier that people run into as farmers is one is it feels like I'm charging so much for like 5 carrots. And then two is actually just receiving that. And just remember that you're giving people health. Like you're serving people as much as they're serving you by giving you their exchange of money for your food. So I just want to really presence that for new farmers in the room who are just, breaking through those barriers of receiving for the food that you're growing.
Yep, nice comment.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Jodi. We
My
appreciate you.
pleasure. Thanks for the invite. Yep.
Yeah, we appreciate you deeply and wishing you all the best and cannot wait to follow your journey. And Jodi has courses that are online and in person in New Zealand. So if you want to, do some traveling, go visit his farm, check out when he's doing a session, and maybe you can schedule that in. And he also has his YouTube channel and his Instagram, and he puts out a newsletter on a regular basis where he also shares lots of tips and strategies and tools and resources for market gardening and growing your farm business.
Could I just add one thing in there?
Yeah, for sure.
Over the last 2 years, I've made a series of podcasts with Diego Footer, Farm Small, Farm Smart, and I've made them subject by subject. So, for example, it's finding a site, what to look for, how to begin, layout, design, greenhouse, wash and pack, you name it. So yeah, it's Farm Small, Farm Smart, the Profitable Mini Farm. There's about 20 episodes on there and more to come.
Wonderful. We will put a link to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll for sure put a link in that. We'll put a link in that in the all access course, and then we'll also work at just putting a link on that, maybe on this. If you could send us that link, Jodi.
I put it in.
Oh, you
and
put
it's
in?
on the course. It's on the course
Perfect.
already.
It's on the course already. Great.
On the
Fabulous.
free access watch page as well. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you
So
very much.
easy for people to find. That's fabulous. Thanks for that, Leslie. So we are ready to wrap our second to last session with the Soil Summit with Jodi. So let's show them some love. There's lots of comments in there. I don't know if you can see the chat, Jodi, but so many people. Thank you so much. I love the reminders of lifelong learning. Great session, really inspirational, much appreciated. You're a legend. They call you Legend Jodi. There is a question about, can you quickly name the tomato training system that you mentioned?
Yeah, so the new system is called, pronunciation is probably completely wrong, Quipler. It's Qplir, and it's from the Netherlands. They have a website and a YouTube. Farmer's Friend have it. Neversink Farm have it. And for Australasia, activevista.au have it. And I'm sure Quipler in the Netherlands have it. Check out the YouTube. One skilled worker can lower 600 plants an hour. And end of the season, you're not pulling strings off crops and no ladder. End of the season, cut the plant at the bottom, undo 2 clips, pull it out the greenhouse, get your winter crops in. Like,
wow.
Remember, I'm going to finish with this. The one thing you don't have on the farm, you know that answer now. It ain't the tractor.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
Right. Congratulations on the whole event you put together too. I'm looking forward to going through and listening to all the other presentations.